The moving chair. The house on Maple Street had been abandoned for years before the Turners moved in. It was an old Victorian home, its wooden frame creaking with every gust of wind. Despite the eerie rumors circulating about the place, James and Claire Turner found it charming. It was spacious, affordable, and seemingly perfect for starting their new life together. They dismissed the town's whispers about the previous owner's sudden disappearance, chalking it up to superstition. Everything seemed normal at first. The couple spent their days unpacking, decorating, and adjusting to their new surroundings. But it wasn't long before Claire began to notice strange occurrences. It started subtly. Items would be out of place, doors would creak open on their own, and an unsettling chill lingered in certain rooms despite the summer heat. Then there was the rocking chair. An antique wooden rocking chair had come with the house, left behind in the dimly lit corner of the parlor. It was beautifully carved, its deep mahogany wood worn with age. Claire had found it peculiar that such a valuable piece of furniture was abandoned, but she liked its rustic charm and decided to keep it. One evening, as she was reading on the couch, she heard the faint creaking of wood. Looking up, she saw the chair gently swaying back and forth. A draught, she reasoned. Perhaps the floor was uneven. She dismissed it and went back to her book, but the unease stayed with her. As days passed, the rocking grew more pronounced. It no longer moved gently. It would sway aggressively at night, the creaking sound echoing through the house like distant whispers. James, ever the skeptic, laughed it off. "Old houses make noises," he said. "You're just letting your imagination run wild." Then came the night that changed everything. Claire awoke to the sound of creaking wood. The chair was rocking violently, as if an unseen force was sitting in it. She nudged James awake. "Look," she whispered, her voice trembling. James groggily opened his eyes and sat up. His expression turned from sleepy amusement to horror. The chair was moving on its own, back and forth, faster and faster. Then suddenly it stopped. A heavy silence filled the room. Then a whisper. "Leave." The voice was faint but clear, coming from the direction of the chair. Claire's breath hitched in her throat. James jumped out of bed and turned on every light in the house, searching for an explanation, but they found nothing. The next day, Claire insisted on getting rid of the chair. James agreed, though reluctantly. They carried it to the backyard, intending to burn it. As the flames licked at the wood, an ear-piercing scream erupted from the fire. It wasn't human, it was something unnatural, something guttural and angry. The flames flickered violently, as if resisting. Claire screamed, and James doused the fire with water, the chair only partially burned. Shaken, they decided to take it far away. They loaded the chair into their truck and drove miles out of town, into the thick forest. Finding a deep ravine, James heaved the chair over the edge, watching it disappear into the darkness below. Relieved, they drove home, convinced that the nightmare was over. But it wasn't. That night, as Claire lay in bed, she felt an unbearable weight pressing down on her chest. She gasped, unable to move, her body paralyzed. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw it. The chair. It was back in the room, right where it had always been. And it was rocking. A shadowy figure sat in it, its form barely distinguishable in the darkness. But its eyes, cold, hollow voids, stared directly at her. Claire wanted to scream, but no sound escaped her lips. The figure leaned forward, its whisper slithering into her ears. "You cannot get rid of me." The paralysis broke, and Claire shot up, gasping for air. She turned on the bedside lamp, shaking James awake. "It's here," she sobbed. "It's back." James, though shaken, tried to remain rational. "We must have imagined it," he said, though his voice wavered. But as they looked at the chair, they knew the truth. The next day, they called a priest. Father Andrews arrived, a solemn look on his face. The moment he stepped inside, he inhaled sharply. "There is a presence here," he murmured. He approached the chair cautiously, placing a hand on its backrest. Almost immediately, he recoiled as if burned. "This is no ordinary haunting," he said. "There is something malevolent attached to this chair." He began a cleansing ritual, sprinkling holy water and reciting prayers. The moment the water touched the chair, it groaned, as if in pain. The house trembled, and a deafening wail filled the air. Claire clung to James as Father Andrews pressed on, his voice unwavering. Then suddenly the wailing stopped. The house fell into an eerie silence. "Is it over?" Claire whispered. Father Andrews hesitated. "For now." He advised them to remove the chair from the house and bury it deep in consecrated ground. Taking no chances, James and Claire drove to an abandoned churchyard and buried the chair beneath layers of dirt and stone. For weeks, peace returned to their home, the nightmares faded, and the air felt lighter. They began to believe they were finally free. Until one evening, as Claire was preparing dinner, she heard it, the unmistakable sound of wood creaking. James rushed into the room, his face pale. They turned toward the parlor. The chair was back, rocking slowly, and the shadow in it was smiling.